Better to feel uncomfortable for a minute asking a question than to sign a year-long contract with an agency that doesn't work. Absolutely winds me up. It absolutely winds me up.
What is it that I genuinely need from this bit of software, and how is it genuinely going to help me? I was telling you the window story. Shall I tell the
I like the window story.
Okay, so... Nice pitch, Shane, about the service.
A line we hear a lot.
Yeah, and there is a serious note to this, isn't there? In that when we're talking to potential clients or bring new clients on board here, and they're talking about frustrations with previous suppliers, like why they wanted to make a move, all that type of stuff. 9 times out of 10, there's a frustration born from the fact that what was pitched by an agency didn't match the reality of the service.
Yeah.
And I think the first one that we were going to talk about was, I guess, chemistry, rapport, and getting to know the team that you're going to be working with.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing that we've got feedback on when people have come to us, is that in the pitch process, they were speaking with heads of department or even maybe the owners, founders, and they never ended up being their day-to-day contact.
Yeah.
They end up being
Distant.
fobbed off to like a very junior person.
Yeah.
And not getting the level of expertise that they were expecting.
Yeah.
So I think in any pitch process, it's difficult to have everybody that you're going to be working with in the room, for sure. But there should be at least 1 or 2 people in that room, in the pitch process, that will be a part of your day-to-day contact, like you're being palmed off.
Yeah, I do think, so you look at this from an agency side, and quite often, and this is no disrespect to people who work on accounts day to day at all, but quite often people who work on an account day to day are not the most polished presenters or salespeople, because that's not their job. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. And sometimes I think agencies, there might be like a nervousness to put people in the room who aren't polished.
Yeah.
But actually, I think that's a really good thing, because, the potential client or the person that you're talking to, you can ask those day-to-day people without the polish and without the shine, what they think about a certain scenario. What would you do if you're in this camp? Or, and to get that kind of roots level in the trenches view that's not shiny and polished, gives you a sense of reality. Next point for me is case studies. And obviously every pitch in the world is going to have really nice case studies with really big percentage numbers in. We've got them, our competitors have got them, every agency you see within a process will have them. Mm-hmm. I think the key with case studies is asking questions and interrogating a little bit on how those numbers were arrived at, what those numbers actually mean, what time period were those numbers over, all that sort of stuff, and trying to find it's the story behind it that's, I think, the most important.
Absolutely.
And not just going, oh wow, that's a really good result, great. But actually, well, how did you get there? What did you have to overcome to get that? Did you get it straight away, or did you have a couple of failures first and then get there? Tell me about that. And that, I think, is where the gold within case studies is a conversation around how that was arrived at.
I'm always super cautious if you're not given the spend amount and you're only given percentage revenue increase or ROAS, and it's great, I can get a fantastic ROAS if I'm spending a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's those things. It's okay, but what do those numbers actually mean? You got loads of revenue in, but what was the actual profit of that? What was the margins and what you were looking at?
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than just, we increased your revenue by 110%. That's great. But if you started off with £10, it's actually not that impressive.
Yeah.
So understanding those numbers deeper and the impact that it had on that business is so much more important than just the number itself. Being in this industry for a while as well now, there are some case studies out there that I've seen that I know are not as good and shiny as they look, because we've had conversations with the businesses after they've left them.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. And that's definitely given me possibly more of a cynical light on it, but it's the same thing. Like, I will always question now if I'm seeing numbers, I always question the reality of those.
Yeah. Also, kind of almost the next point on that is asking questions that might feel a bit uncomfortable.
Better to feel uncomfortable for a minute asking a question than to sign a year-long contract with an agency that doesn't work.
Yeah, but finding a difficult question to ask about a case study or anything else tells you so many things, because you'll see how the agency reacts. You'll see kind of, do they try and squirm around it and pull the wool over your eyes, or try and not like go to it, or will they just tell you straight? And are they okay with being put on the spot, you know, being a little uncomfortable? Because they'll just show you what it's like, because things happen and everyone has to be able to deal with it. The next point I had was around resource. Oh man, that Diet Coke.
Edit that out, Hallie.
Sorry. I managed to keep it in though. Resource. So, and what I mean by that is understanding how much resource you're going to get. Obviously, we talked about who you're going to be working with in that, but like, how much time are you actually going to get from your agency, and what does that split look like? Also, where you sit in the mix. So, asking questions like, what percentage of your revenue is my fee going to make up, will tell you where you sit in the balance. And if it's a really, really, really low number, then you're probably not going to be top of the priority list. If you're too high, there's a risk that the agency is going to be too reliant on your business, and that could cause challenges as well. But it's one of those questions, I think, that, again, does the agency even know the answer to the question? That will tell you a lot.
Are they going to give you an honest answer?
Are they going to give you an honest answer? Do they sit and squirm, or do they just you'll be about 5%, you'll be about 10%? Can they tell you?
Can they give you a rough estimate?
Yeah.
And
then you'll know kind of where you sit, and it's human nature that businesses will prioritize the stuff that's more valuable. Final point was the illusion of software, which I know really winds you up.
It absolutely winds me up. Winds me up, because
why are you so angry about this?
We're not saying this is therapy couch now. Let's
go. Before anyone who runs a software business gets upset, we're not saying all performance marketing related software is bad and you should never ever go. Like, that's not what we're saying.
There's some fantastic things out there. 100% there is, and we use some of them. Like there are some really great kind of.
So what's the thing that annoys you?
The thing that annoys me, I mean, how long have you got? But is when actually something is relatively basic, relatively straightforward, but it is packaged in a way that it's inaccessible. It's full of jargon. It's full of like techie things that people aren't going to understand to make it seem like it's so much more than it is. When the reality of it is collating data and coming up with trends. Like, that is the reality of a lot of these things. And what I get really frustrated about is at Overdrive, we are doing these things. We have this, I don't even want to call it technology, but we've
got a lot of stuff in place.
We use these processes.
We pull a lot of data.
But I think the nature of who we are as a business is we're relatively we want things to be accessible. We want things to be transparent. So we're not packaging things up in this way that it makes it seem
we've got something we haven't.
Fancy, shiny thing.
Yeah, when actually it's just a Google Ads script. Or a Google Sheet.
Exactly.
Pulling data in.
We share that, and we're very open with clients about that, and they can have access to these things. But it is the same as this big shiny thing that another agency is talking about, and that's my frustration.
Yeah, and they've probably given it a nice name.
Yes, we're like
a quirky name,
a quirky, fun name, But we're like, hey, here's this thing.
Here's a Google Sheet.
Here's this Google Sheet. This is how we do it. This is what we're doing. And we talk people through it.
Yeah.
Because we're not gatekeeping that knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's so important to me that we're not.
Yeah.
But that's where my frustration comes from, because I feel like there's so much jargon and crap that's thrown around, whereas actually some of these things everybody should be doing anyway.
Yeah. I think what you have to do, and there are probably bits of agency software that will help.
No, absolutely. Put my hands up to that. Yeah,
multiple
definitely.
scenarios.
Yeah.
But it's when a bit of proprietary agency software is being pitched as like, well, if you haven't got this, you're missing out. Or if you work with us and you plug your campaigns through this software, then you're going to do a gazillion times better than you otherwise would. And I think, again, as with
That's
everything, with everything that we talked about on this episode, it's why. Like, what is it that it does that's am I going to get better performance? Am I going to save loads of time and therefore money on management?
Yeah.
And can we do more with the time that we've got? Like, what is it that makes this better? Or is it that I'm going to get more insights, I'm going to get better data, I'm going to be able to make better decisions? Like, what is it that I genuinely need from this bit of software, and how is it genuinely going to help me? So I think it's just basically what we're saying is question everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see what the response is. And if you're not sure, dig in more and dig in further and talk to more people. Talk to people who've worked with them. Talk to people who used to work with them. All that type of stuff. And you'll start to build a really clear picture. And I think it's getting that clear picture that is really, really key. Yeah.
It's a relationship that should have a degree of consideration before you jump into it. So don't make a decision based on shiny numbers. Make it based on facts.
And you can see patterns, can't you, in like communication or stages in the process, and you can kind of really get a vibe for how people are and how much you trust them.
You can feel them out a bit in the process. Yeah, definitely.
I was telling you the window story. Shall I tell the
I like the window story.
Okay, so me and my wife moved into our house ages ago, and when we moved in, front half of the house was single glazed, really windy, terrible. Back half was double glazed, but you know where they fill up with moisture and you're like,
yeah, not great.
That's a bill that's going to happen at some point. So we knew we'd have to do the windows at some point. My wife's got taste.
What does it say
she's
about
like,
you?
oh, I want to see if we can get double glazed timber framed windows. I was like, this sounds expensive. Okay, let's get a quote, see what it is. Then we can make a factual decision.
Yeah.
Just got a company round, and well, the first thing was she opened the door, and the sales guy said, "Oh, hi there, is the man of the house in?"
I want to bash my head against a wall.
So she's like, I wanted to punch the guy immediately. She didn't punch him.
Tempting as it was.
Come in, started all the sales. Just tell me. Like, first off, I need to know how much is it going to cost. £90,000.
Those better be some damn good windows.
£90,000. To which my wife's response was obviously to laugh and go like, "What are you like? What planet are you on?" And then, I'll tell you what, we'll do it for 50.
I just whacked 40k off. That doesn't make any sense.
It's like that. So you're like, well, look, if it is £90,000, it's £90,000.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it. It's ridiculous. But if that's what it costs, that's what it costs. Fair enough. But to then suddenly go down to fit. Oh no, don't worry about it for 50. Like, but what? Like, so why was it 90 then? And just instantly no trust.
Trust is gone.
Plus, she wanted to punch the guy because
sexist.
I think it's just an extreme example of, like, as you go through a sales process in any walk of life, and there's lots of communication back and forth, and you're talking about various different things. If someone's not being straight with you, you can start to see that pattern, can't you? And it just eradicates a bit of trust, and it's, you know, looking for patterns in how people communicate, you know, how quickly they communicate. Do they double back on things, or, you can just start to get a sense and a flavour for things, can't you, quite quickly?
That's why I think it's so important, where possible, to have pitch meetings in person.
Oh,
You learn so much about a person when you're there with them.
100.
You see how people treat every member of your staff as they're coming in.
Yeah.
You see if they are, I don't know, pouring water for everybody else before they pour it for themselves. You see if, I don't know, there's so many little interactions.
Little bits, yeah.
That you can gauge, these are the kind of person I want to work with.
Yeah.
So have it in person as much as you can. I mean,
face to face is so important, isn't it?
100%, to get that feel for somebody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's just not the same on Zoom, is it?
No. And sometimes it has to be, if you've got international clients, it's what it is. But
where possible,
try and have it face to face. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, hopefully everyone listening to that has found it helpful.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you, Abby. And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, please do come and subscribe. Join us for future episodes where we talk about the ins and outs of running paid media and driving improved conversions and revenue for your business. See you next time.